What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another spring practice report video. It is Wednesday, April 6th, and today we are going to focus practically all on the SEC. So let's take a ride around SEC country to give you guys an update on some spring practice reports. All right, so we are going to start with Alabama, and they have been practicing. I want to say that their spring game is next week, the 16th. So they've still got a couple more practices to go before they get into that spring game mode. I believe they're on practice 10. So they've got 5 more before their spring game, or 9 or 10. I can't remember the exact number. But right now, everything is kind of settling in with Bryce Young being the guy. They've really kind of talked about we know how good he's going to be, right? Like, there's no point talking about Bryce Young. But Jalen Milroe has been a guy who's been getting a lot of love from Nick Saban. Nick Saban has been saying that he has been extremely consistent, and he's continued to make strides every single week. Ty Simpson, who's another guy, incoming 5-star freshman this year that a lot of people do like, has Nick Saban has said of him that he has a lot of promise and a lot of upside. So I don't think Simpson's really going to push for taking that second job. I really think that Milroe has that locked up. Going to be a very interesting battle next season. Obviously, we know that Jahmyr Gibbs is the guy here. And the guy that seems to be getting a lot of run behind him is Jace Mcclellan. While a lot of people expect Roydell Williams to kind of get a lot of run here with him being the thumper, it really seems like him and Trey Sanders are fighting for that third role, and then Jamarion Miller and Emmanuel Henderson are by far behind those 4. But it looks like Gibbs and McClellan have been the leaders so far in everything that I have seen and read for Alabama. Going to the wide receivers, so at the Z spot, especially now with the Hall news and him not being on the roster, it seems like it's going to be Jermaine Burton and Christian Leary as the top 2 for Z, with Isaiah Bond coming in third there at X, Ja'Cory Brooks, then Trayshawn Holden, Shaz Preston, and then, of course, the guy everybody's been asking about, Jojo Earle, who is currently leading at the slot spot. Aaron Anderson, though, has been pushing and has been playing well in practice as well. But they've just talked about how Jojo Earle has been extremely lethal, especially in pairing with Bryce Young. So I expect Jojo Earle is going to get that. There hasn't been a whole lot of talk about what that is going to look like. There have been some stories, though, that they really want to use Earle and Leary on the field at the same time with as dynamic as both those guys can be. So it's going to be really interesting. Does seem, though, like everything that I've read and seen today on the multiple practice reports that I went through, is that Earle has just been extremely impressive in the slot role. Moving on to Arkansas here, who obviously coming off a great season last year. They got a couple transfers in, and Jadon Hazelwood, one of them, who had a lot of promise coming out of high school, was a guy we thought maybe was going to be really good at Oklahoma, ends up transferring out and lands here at Arkansas. So right now, he has been practicing, but he has had a green non-contact. Excuse me, I had to sneeze so bad. I was trying not to do that. Anyways, I apologize about that. Jadon Hazelwood has not really, he's been practicing, but he's been wearing a green non-contact jersey for the past couple practices. Obviously, that's not something you'd like to hear, as we know that he's dealt with injuries throughout his career, but he's still been making plays. There's been a lot of talk about him getting a couple really nice one-handed catches. He has actually been connecting more with Malik Hornsby than KJ Jefferson. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Malik Hornsby has apparently looked good as well, has really been impressing and had some really impressive flashes and throws in practice. Warren Thompson, Katron Jackson seem to be the set wide receivers on the outside, with Hazelwood in the slot, assuming health. What is interesting to me is AJ Green is getting a lot of buzz, as well as possibly being the starter over Raheem Rocket Sanders. I know Sanders is a guy that we all love. There's not been anything negative, just a lot of the stuff that I saw. There's a lot of people now putting out projected depth charts just based on what they've seen in practice. And AJ Green is getting a lot of love with how good he has been as well. even if he doesn't win the job, the fact that he's getting this much love, I think, means that Raheem, Rocket Sanders, and AJ Green are going to split time at least, but there should be at least some volume or enough volume here to go around for those two. And at tight end, Trey Knox has been injured, but a lot of people are saying he's going to likely be the one that converted wide receiver with Hudson Henry kind of moving in and out there at the one at tight end. Last, again, just wanted to touch on, again, a lot of reports about how good Malik Hornsby has looked, so maybe the future there for Arkansas. Going over to Auburn, and the quarterback battle here, for the most part, seems to be that it's going to be TJ Finley. While I know a lot of people, including our own CFF Nate, want Robbie Ashford to win the job, Robbie Ashford has looked very impressive from everything I've read. He's definitely pushing to unseat Finley, but it really seems like he's going to be the guy. In fact, freshman Holden Grenier, I honestly have no idea how to say his last name, has actually been running with the twos as well with Robbie Ashford, as Zach Calzada is still coming back from an injury. There are people who do believe Robbie Ashford is going to continue to push TJ Finley even right up to the starting day and the very first game of the season. But it does seem like it's TJ Finley's job for the most part here at Auburn. Going over to Georgia, there's really not a lot that I could find. The biggest thing is being Kendall Milton has looked really good, but he is definitely going to be splitting time, which we expect, especially here at Georgia. Dejan Edwards, I believe, is also getting a lot of love at the running back position, and wide receivers Kearis Jackson, Marcus Roseme, Jack Sent, and Arian Smith are getting a lot of love as well, as really kind of being the top three guys. But Jackson Meeks has been getting a lot of love from the past couple reports that I have looked at and some of the other stuff that I've read and listened to. I know the freshman Denylon Morset was getting a lot of love. I haven't seen quite as much love for him as I have for Meeks, so I expect Morset to probably be the 4 or 5. Probably the 5, actually, with Meeks being the 4. But definitely some players impressing here at Georgia. Moving on over to Kentucky. And Kentucky was one that I spent a lot of time on looking into because I was just curious. They are getting ready for the spring game. It is this weekend. We know that they had Rick Scangarello coming in from the 49ers and the NFL, and he has brought a more passing friendly kind of narrative to Kentucky. They've been focusing on literally passing, and more passing. Levis has apparently been very impressive with this. And the one thing that coaches and teammates are literally really crediting toward Levis is how smart his football IQ is. They have said it's really been on display in the fact that this is his third season in a row he's had to learn a new offense, and he's already got this offense down for the most part. I do think that does speak well to his character and his obviously football IQ, and the fact that it's now the third system he's had to learn. He's done a good job with it. And all the word around camp, though, as well, is that the Levis to Robinson connection isn't going anywhere. In fact, it's been as strong as ever. And you may say, well, Matt, Wandale went to the NFL. For those of you who don't know, Tavion Robinson transferred here, and he has looked just as electric and an even better deep threat for Levis. They've connected multiple times in camp on the deep ball. So Tavion Robinson, if you look at what Wandale was able to do there last year with Kentucky and the fact that Rick Scangarello wants to throw the ball even more, Levis to the Robinson connection might be a really good one this year as well. Maybe not like a top, 24 QB and wide receiver, but I definitely think these two could be really good for each other at Kentucky. Moving on to LSU, and LSU has got some interesting things going on here, and I was trying to find my thing. So they just had practice the other day where they split the reps 3 ways between Jaden Daniels, Miles Brennan, and Garrett Nussmeier. Miles Brennan went 6 for 11 for 67 yards, 1 sack, 1 interception, 1 touchdown. Jaden Daniels, 5 for 5 for 23 yards, 1 sack, and 2 runs for about 4 yards. Garrett Nussmeier, 4 for 5, 26 yards, 1 run for 8 yards. All the reports are that none of these guys are really that impressive, and no one's really pulling away with the job. However, it is believed that Daniels is still the front runner based on the amount of number 1 snaps that he has gotten through most of the practices. And he did still get most of the reps Saturday, even though they did split it up between the 3. So with that being said, I think Daniels is still going to be the guy who wins this job. The fact that Brennan and Nussmeier aren't really stepping up and taking this away from Daniels, and from everything I'm reading, is practically what they're going to have to do. I think Jaden Daniels is all but secured into this spot as the starter. Let's see here. Going into the what did I do with my one thing here? I lost it. I had a projected all kinds of stuff, and now I cannot find it. Here we go. So for the running backs, Josh Williams and Armani Goodwin have been getting most of the reps. Trey Bradford coming in third here. Noah Kane, who transferred in from Penn State, is still not actually in camp yet, so I don't know what that means for him possibly getting the starting job. From everything I've been reading, Josh Williams and Armani Goodwin have really kind of been leading the way here for LSU and are likely one of those two is going to be the starters. And the wide receiver that's been impressing the most here for the Tigers has been Malik Neighbors. He obviously had a big impact in the back half of the season. Jack Beck, who, for those of you who pay attention to him CFF purposes, know that he has lost his tight end designation. He is going back to playing wide receiver here. Jerry Jenkins, Brian Thomas Jr., and Chris Hilton have all looked good, but it's definitely been Malik Neighbors who has been by far the most impressive out of all of the wide receivers. All right, going over to Mississippi State, we know Will Rogers is going to be the guy. He's an absolute stud. Jaquavius Marks and Dylan Johnson have been getting most of the run at running back. That seems to be the 1-2 pairing there for them. Going over to the wide receivers right now, the starters seem to be at Z, Caleb Ducking, Y, Jaden Wally, and X, Laderick Griffin. That's a little bit surprising because we know how good Ra Thomas looked at the end of last season. He has apparently just not been that impressive in camp and is the 2 right now behind Griffin at the X. Just based on everything that I've read, based on the way that the competition has been split up and the reps have been taken. So it's definitely something to watch out for. I know a lot of people, especially in our Discord, have been pretty happy and excited about Ra Thomas. Doesn't seem like he's getting a lot of love right now. Going over to Ole Miss. Lane Kiffin is, I don't know how much I want to believe this, but he's definitely been pumping up this battle between Altmaier and Dart. Now, if you want to believe in it, then some of the stuff you're about to hear may be a little bit damning for a guy like Dart, who I am a big fan of. Dart has made the more impressive plays downfield. However, Kiffin has said that he's made more mistakes too. And this is a big thing for Luke Altmaier, as he's been more consistent and he knows the system better. He's been here longer. Again, I don't know that this is not just Lane Kiffin, coach speak. Hey, we're saying this is a competition because we don't want Luke Altmaier to transfer out. But still, the fact that he's been saying that out loud and to the public is not great for Dart, at least in right now, assuming he's just going to get the job. Quinshon Judkins and David Igbenosin have been really good. Obviously, for those of you who've been following this for a while and myself know how much I love Quinshon Judkins. Obviously, he's still going to be behind Evans and Bentley, but the fact that he's really looking good, and they've talked about how great he's looked since coming in, is just it's great for him and his upside moving toward the future. He's also said that Trigg is just a grown man. He's extremely exciting to watch. So, and we kind of thought that, right, with Trigg following Dart over here. South Carolina, Rattler continues to dominate. While he's definitely had some turnovers in practice, for the most part, he's been amazing and practically taken all of the first-team reps. Not that that's really surprising. He's going to be the starter there. The big talk out of South Carolina, though, is how good the offensive line has been and how improved it is. I do think that helps Spencer Rattler moving forward. Very intrigued to see how that works out for him. Going to Tennessee, we know Hendon Hooker is going to be the starter there. Right now, Cedric Tillman, Chaz Nimrod, and Walker Merrill are competing for the X spot at the Y. Cedric Tillman is locked in as the X with Chaz Nimrod and Walker Merrill competing for that 2 spot. Y, Jalen Hyatt, who has gotten a lot of pub this offseason and in camp about how good he has been, is locked into the Y with Jimmy Callaway behind him. And then Raymel Keaton in at the Z receiver with freshman Caleb Webb pushing him, a big wide receiver guy. And I believe David at Solving Football on Twitter are both big fans of his. He has been really impressive as well, but still technically the 2 at Z behind Raymel Keaton. And that will do it. Florida, really quick. It's just been inconsistent. I mean, and I think that's what we expect with Anthony Richardson, right? Like he's apparently all the talk is like he makes one great throw and then he like dirt balls three next. So Richardson's definitely got to improve on his passing. We'll see what happens, but I don't think he loses that job. It seems like Jack Miller's just behind him, and that's going to be Anthony Richardson's job. Vanderbilt, there really wasn't much on Vanderbilt outside of Raymond Davis, who you guys know I'm a big fan of, has looked good, but being on probably the worst team in the SEC, I don't know what that really means for him. So that will do it for us today on the SEC practice reports. We will be back tomorrow with a bunch of Pac-12 reports. Everybody have a great day.